Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to another Wednesday. This is where we're doing the live training, bringing you a topic to help you build influence. And today's topic is all about monetizing your message, especially if you're struggling to monetize your message. So I want to share some of the common obstacles, some of the ones that I have made over the years in my coaching practice, so that you can kind of pinpoint some things to change, as well as things that you need to focus on so that you can take your message, build your reach, build your reputation as that trusted authority, and ultimately your income. So if this is the very first time that you are joining me across any of the platforms, I would love for you to do a shout out. Let me know who you are in the comments. Put down which country you are listening and watching from. Even if you are watching the replay, would love you just to put hashtag replay. And maybe you've got a question about monetizing your message that you would love to answer. I'll circle back and certainly come around and give you some more insights on that. But anyway, without any further ado, we're going to dive in to the topic. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get started. So, Good. So today's topic, monetize your message, the common obstacles that will keep you stuck. Now, if this is the first time you're joining me, just very briefly, my name is Annemarie Cross. I am known as a podcasting queen. Love podcasting. I've been doing that ever since 2008 when the global financial crisis hit, and a colleague and I were in the career industry, and we thought we need to be the voice of hope and inspiration from all the doom and gloom across all of the mainstream media platforms. And through that time, always used a podcast, but now it's gone full circle where I'm using my background, my training is all in personal branding and getting online. And of course, using those two tools to really help other change makers stand out, be heard, and become that influential voice in their industry. That's a little bit about me. What I also want you to do is to share a little bit about you too. This is an incredible community of global game changers, change makers, innovators. And so share a little bit more about what you do in the comments. I invite you to do that, actually. I want you to pitch yourself. The reason being is you will never know who is going to come across your content, your comment, and who will reach out to you. So Cheryl, great to see you here. I'm just going to show that comment. These are the kind of comments that I love. I can see there's a lot of information in there. I'll go back. Hopefully I'll circle back and be able to answer that. Commercials. Yeah, you know what? Monetize your own message before you monetize someone else's. I hope, Cheryl, that you'll be able to get some value in this today. By the way, if you are struggling to monetize your podcast, I've got some free training over in my community of change makers, podcastingwithpurpose.com/community. You'll be able to tap into all of those previous replays as well. But share a little bit more about what you do, Cheryl. Would love for you to do that because you just don't know who's going to pass on by here and be a great connection for you. Okay, so why is this so very important when we're talking about monetization of our message, but our message per se? Now, in last week's Building Influence training, I shared a resource and I want to share it again because I know that we get new people that are coming across our feed, and I want to make sure that you're aware of this too if this is your first time here. So Internet Stats, internetlivestats.com is a website which tracks in real time how many blog posts are being written, how many internet users are in the world, total number of websites, emails sent today, Google searches, blog posts written, tweets sent today, and it continues to add up till it gets to kind of 24 hours and then it resets again. And so it's incredible when you think about the amount of content. Now, what I did previously was actually went to the website, but I want to encourage you to go and do that, Internet Live Stats, and see how many people are sharing content in the world across all different platforms, which really enables us to see just how much content our podcast episode, our post on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter or any of the platforms that you're using to really showcase your knowledge, showcase your expertise. Why, even if it's the best of the best and you are a leader in your industry, why it's just not cutting through the noise? Because there is so much content there, which means that we need to be really mindful about how we're positioning our content. It can also be in the timing. It can also be a lot of different factors. But one thing I want to share with you today is a study that was done by Havas Media Group. Now, I've referenced this across a number of different trainings, and even though this was done a number of years ago now, I think it can still very much be relevant today when we're thinking about our content and the content in itself, which of course is the message. Now, Havas asked 375,000 people across 33 countries, what did they expect from brands? And that they said, the people in the group said 84% expected brands to produce content. So the question was asked, do you expect companies, brands, even if you're a solopreneur, you can still be considered as a brand, your business. And 84% of them expected that we need to be producing content. But here's the figure that I want to bring to your attention. 60% of those people, the respondents, said that the current content that was being shared was irrelevant, it was poor, and it failed to deliver any real value. So what I want to really encourage you to do is to be mindful of the content that you're sharing. You know, before you post, ask yourself, is this relevant to my audience? Is it delivering? And the delivery of that content, the outcome of the content can be different. It may be to inspire people. It may be to completely shift a bit of, transformation and thinking, or even just share an idea that you had and you want other people to contribute their thoughts as well. But if you can share a piece of content with the viewpoint of, I want someone to stop, read or listen or watch and think, you know what? I'm glad that I read that. I'm glad, thinking differently. You've inspired them. That you've made an impact in some way in their lives, and that's one of the things that I will often do. But in this instance, obviously, the respondents were saying it wasn't, and I know that some businesses share content, share a message just for the sake of getting something out there. And as a brand strategist, I'll often say, everything that we put out there, our actions, our interactions, our communications, our content speaks your brand. And it can speak it in an empowering, positive way, and it can also detract. So be very mindful about the content that you're sharing. So we need to be mindful about that too, and why we need to share relevant, interesting, informative, helpful content. So ask yourself, what is happening with my current content? Because your content will reflect the message that you're sharing and the key message that you want to get out there as you position yourself. So your message is key for a number of different reasons. I mean, I've just mentioned 3 of them. Cutting through the noise, definitely. There's a lot of people who are probably talking about a similar topic as you, and you need to be able to position yourself differently than what they're doing. Give a different perspective to the conversation. Your content needs to build, know, like, and trust with your ideal customer. Also, when you think of the community who you are building, you may also want to be putting your content out in front of influencers, influential people, influential organizations, because these organizations may be working with your ideal clients. And that's a great opportunity for you to build those relationships, through building that know, like, and trust, so they can become referral partners for you, or maybe alliance partners, or maybe get you in to their community to speak to their audience. And you can do that when you've got your content and your message hitting all of the right points with your ideal client. And of course, your content needs to nurture your ideal client through the buyer's journey. And as you would have heard me share within other trainings, buyer's journey for me, I just kind of narrow it down to 3 key stages. I'm getting older now, so I need to be mindful of what I'm trying to hold in my brain. 3 things, simple: building awareness stage, consideration, where someone knows about you and thinks, oh, okay, I'm going to consider working with them or consider diving in a little bit deeper to their content. And as you're nurturing them through the consideration stage, the decision stage. So awareness, stage 1, consideration, stage 2, and decision, stage 3. So your content, your message needs to do that nurturing. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and I just need you just to think about these and maybe even use this as an opportunity that if you identify, yep, I can relate to that's a great opportunity for you to write that down in a journal and then do some further thinking around that and how can I change that so that we can move forward with much more clarity. So how effective is your message? So do you struggle to define your unique voice and message? You know, if I was to be sitting across the table from you, and I actually am at the moment, but you don't need to necessarily respond. I just want you to do that for yourself. Would you say that you're struggling to do that? And if you said yes, I would say that you are, one of many business owners that struggles with that. It's not just something that you struggle with. What about this? When you're asked, what do you do? Or why should I work with you? Your mind goes blank. Is that a yes? Can you relate to that? What about this question? I often compare myself to others and end up doubting my expertise and changing my message. This was something one of my clients said to me before we started working together. She said, I'll often hear something or I'll read something. I'll think, oh, that's so good. Why didn't I think of that? And then she'd tweak the message. And, when you're so clear on your message and it's aligned with your purpose and your skills and expertise, the gifts and the brilliance that you can bring to the world, it doesn't matter what other people are saying, even if they're working in the same industry as you, because you bring a completely different perspective and experience to the relationship with your ideal customer. And, in fact, you can celebrate other people working in a similar industry because, especially if you go from a mindset of abundance, there's so many opportunities, even though we are sitting, all of us, right in the middle of, countries struggling economically and businesses. I think this is so important moving forward because some of you are pivoting. In fact, one of my clients said the other day, I thought it was brilliant, I'm repivoting my pivot. As entrepreneurs, sometimes we need to do that. And so this is really important. But if we move forward and we're always constantly comparing what we're doing and how we're talking about our message, it just means that we haven't clarified it enough. Yes, Cheryl, I love that. Cheryl has said, let me bring your comment up. We can add value to one another. We absolutely can. And isn't it wonderful for tools such as this and Zoom and all of the other tools that we're now using that we are able to expand our networks globally now? What about this one? How effective is your message when it comes to diversity? Maybe you've got diverse experience and you're unsure how to explain it in a succinct way and a clear way. This was me. If I think back to the career industry, I just didn't want to do resume development. I loved writing resumes, but I also loved job search. I also loved interviewing. I also loved what other things were getting online back in the day. It's showing my age now when we were starting to use LinkedIn, as a job, for job seekers and getting out there in front of recruiters. And so this is just so very important. Here, Tony, love this. It doesn't matter what others do or say with their messaging. Be your authentic self. That's what resonates with potential buyers. It so does. Thank you, Tony and Cheryl, for adding those brilliant comments. Totally agree. And, if we keep changing our message all the time, people can get confused, can't they? And so this is one that I also heard too. My message and how I introduce myself changes frequently. I speak and I hope for the best. That's what someone once said to me. She said, I have no idea what I say often or what I'm going to say. I just kind of hope and just speak and just hope that whatever comes out, people can understand. That's not really very empowering, is it? If you think about it, when you're going to networking events and so forth. So those are some questions you need to consider. And if you've answered yes to some of those, fantastic. There's some opportunities for you to expand and to grow. So here are some common issues that I have seen. And by all means, please feel free to add your thoughts on this too. Maybe you have seen some other things happening as well. So go ahead and pop those in the comments as well, because this is, let's all contribute to the conversation because it's such an important one. So your message is ambiguous. People will listen to you if you get up and, for a 60-second, have you ever been to a networking event and someone is speaking and you're thinking, you have to be mindful that you don't show this on your face, but it's like, are they speaking English? It's so confusing because there's just no real clarity. And you know what? I think if you identify that this is perhaps a little bit like what your message is currently doing, then don't beat yourself up. Let this be an opportunity that you'll go, you know what, I'm going to start to get really clear on my message. Is your message ambiguous? Ask people if you're not sure. Certainty often will come by what response are you getting when you stand up and you speak. Or if you're speaking to your ideal customer and you can help them, yet after speaking with them, they're not saying to you, well, can you share more about how I might be able to work with you? If that's not happening, maybe that's a good indication. Here's another one. This is one that I have done. Your message is all over the place. There's no consistency. Now, if I think back in the career industry, I love learning, and I need to be really mindful that my message is shared under a consistent umbrella or a theme. If you find that one day you're talking about this particular topic and another, week you're talking about this, or another month you're talking about something completely different, you can confuse your audience because there's no consistency. And I think sometimes to get to that cut through, that you become synonymous with something where people start to call you something in a good way, of course. Like people started calling me the podcasting queen, and I felt really quite awkward. It took me years. It's like, no, I love that medium. And, one of my clients started to be called the money lady, and she's now kind of that's her one of her titles. She says her name, the money lady. Often when you get it right and you continue to consistently speak or do something, people will often see that. But similarly, if you're all over the place, you won't be known for that one thing or doing some things really, really well. So how consistent is your message? Is it under an umbrella? If I think back to the career industry, because I love doing a lot of different things, I put that under an umbrella of get noticed, get hired, get paid what you're worth. And there was a lot of different modalities, from the coaching through to the services that I offered to help clients do that. So maybe that's what you need to do. It's not saying that you can't bring your diverse experience to the table, but how are you talking about it? And are you consistently, sharing it and continuing to validate what you're talking about under that umbrella, even though you may be talking about a specific topic. Let's see what Tony says here. Ambiguity. The marketing department is saying ABC in their positioning, and the sales team is saying XYZ with their prospects. Absolutely. And what's really important about this, Tony, is that if there's a disconnect, what will often happen is people go, oh, well, that's not relevant for me. And, if our message is confusing and just not clear, then they're not going to take that next step. And so, that's really important. So be consistent. Now, what about this? Your message is the same as everyone else. Tony said in his comments here, be your authentic self. This is so important when it comes to your message. If it is the same as everyone else's, you could have the same skills and the same strengths and the same knowledge and the same, kind of background as far as in your specific industry. And you may be able to support people doing something or achieving something, an outcome that many other people are able to support them. But what you don't, what they don't have and what you do have is your story, your journey, the challenges that you've overcome, the systems, the processes, the steps, the approach, your character, your mannerisms. All of these things are what makes you uniquely you. And when blended in with your message, and your brand, your personal brand, which encompasses all of those things, then as you're sharing your message, it becomes quite different from everyone else in the way that they're doing that. I mean, when we think of our voice, we think of our fingerprints. We've heard the saying before, haven't we, that we all have unique fingerprints. Well, we all have the ability to come up with a unique message which differentiates and distinguishes us from everyone else doing the work in our similar industry. And we just need to define what that is. Here is a comment. Rick, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Your passion. You can't fake passion. Well, I don't know. I don't know. Can you fake passion? I don't think so. I mean, there's this, if you speak about a specific topic and you blend the journey and, you're able to share that as you're sharing your message, whether in print, whether in audio, whether in video, that passion comes through. And I think that will, really stand out. It stands out from the crowd. Cheryl Ginnings says, right, our journeys have all been different. It can inspire others. Absolutely. I remember one of my colleagues once telling me, and I'm sharing this because I used to think it was humorous. She says, I love your voice. I don't like my voice. It took me years to listen back to it and think, why did I do that? I think we all, self-critical. But she said to me once, she said, I could listen to you even if you were reading out your shopping list. So it's things like that we may take for granted that actually can become very much part of the experience that we create. Rick, thank you. Said you can't fake authentic passion. Absolutely. No one can take that away from you. And when you blend it in with everything else that we're talking about and all of the incredible comments, I really thank you for sharing that. I love this. Let's have a look. April's shared. We had this happen recently when we offered a coaching group to serve couples by the request of a client, and our clients asked if we changed our focus of the client we want to serve. Wise awareness. Yeah, great comment. I think, when we start to approach this in our way, when we start to approach this with all of the factors that people have contributed to this conversation, I love this. When we collaborate, we can come up with incredible ideas that on our own we may never have been able to think of. So I really appreciate you for contributing. But often what we will do is we will not recognize the brilliance. I had that conversation this morning with someone who is a supporter. If you've ever heard of Roger Hamilton's wealth dynamics, supporter and connectors we all often don't see our brilliance and we hide it away. But connectors and supporters are incredible networkers. Now I'm an introvert, an extroverted introvert. If you get me in front of a microphone, something just clicks. But for me to go to networking groups and invite, introduce myself to people that I don't know, unless I've got a microphone in front of me, I just won't do it because it feels uncomfortable for me. But someone with a gift and a strength and a skill to be able to seek out networks and look at opportunities and connect people and, be a bridge to starting those conversations, to me, that is an incredible, valuable strength that someone brings to that the conversation. So imagine me being able to read content about that and see his approach. That is something that is so valuable in the message. And I'm sharing that because maybe the message that you need to share needs to blend in some more of those your personal approach, your core values. How do you go about doing your work? That may be the exact reason why someone chooses to work with you rather than someone else. So that's really important. So how can you distinguish that message? Don't look at words. One of my mentors, when I was going through my branding, one of the certifications I did was, now as we are looking at other people's content, do not get brand envy. So don't get message envy. You just need to look at, how can I make mine unique so that it stands out? And I bet you it's something that you are taking for granted. Here's something else that I shared just recently on Facebook. Sometimes for those of us who've been in the industry for a while, we've been around the block for a couple of times, for a couple of, rounds, we can learn a lot of different things, which is fabulous, lifelong learners. But sometimes we need to unlearn when it comes to our message, and that is the jargon, the terminologies, because we could be talking about something that's very relevant for everyone in the audience, but they just don't know it because we're using words and theories and phrases that they have no idea. So can we bring it back into the language that they're using? So very important. So maybe you just need to unlearn some of those terminologies. Maybe your message speaks to the modalities and not your ideal client's issues. I remember years ago I was asked when I did some NLP training, neuro-linguistics programming. That's why they call it NLP, because trying to say that 10 times quickly, and it's a bit of a tongue twister. Anywho, what I noticed on this one particular website, they were listing a lot of the coaches, but rather than listing the coaches under how they could support people, they listed it under modalities. Now, the normal, when I say normal person, shouldn't say normal, people don't know what's kinesiology or what's NLP or what's all of these different techniques that can be incredibly helpful. But our ideal clients don't know that, their insomnia can be supported, can be helped through some NLP techniques or some relaxation techniques or whatever it may be. So often our ideal clients are not searching for modalities per se, but rather the problems and the challenges that they're faced with. So, you need to think about, am I sharing my message in the way in which my ideal client is talking about it? And I'm going to share a resource in a moment on how you can start doing some research in that really helps you start to become more aware of the language your ideal client is using. This is one too that often is quite relevant. Your message speaks about the features and not the benefits and the outcomes of what your ideal client is looking for. So just be mindful. You might be really excited that you've got this new piece of equipment that has all of the bells and whistles and all of the technical jargon, but your ideal client just wants a massage and no longer experiencing headaches. Just as an example, So again, talk about the outcomes and the relief or whatever it is that your ideal customer is seeking, because, again, you could have the best of the best equipment, the biggest or the top qualification in your industry. But unless your ideal client knows that this is going to support them, then again, your message is just not going to connect. And this is one too, this is sometimes we have to remind ourselves, our message is too creative. It's creatively confusing. Now, I have used an example, but I'm not going to share it because I think that this particular example is still being shared in this business, and I don't want to call someone out. But, sometimes people come up with these fantastic what they think's beautiful, and people are left thinking, I have no idea what that person is saying. So maybe you just need to take the creativity just down a little bit. Again, what's the language that your ideal clients are seeking, the challenges that they're wanting to overcome, and can you incorporate that into your message? Okay, now here are so that's kind of the message, the actual content that you are sharing. And it starts with that, because everything we do, the content that we're, sharing on social, when we're showing up virtually, and one day when we're able to meet face to face again, we're having conversations with people. And it's what we say, our message and our content, that's very important. And it has to really connect with our ideal customer. But then what we need to do too is take that next step. How are you monetizing that then? And often what happens, especially with coaches, this is service-based businesses where you're really, what people are investing in is your knowledge and expertise and the systems, the steps, the unique processes that you bring to the relationship with your client to support them in their journey from going where they're stuck through to the outcome that they want. And often coaches have not documented that. They haven't refined that. They haven't created what we call the unique system. It's your IP. And that's very different from a lot of the competitors or people who are working in your industry. And so, this is where we talk about, the experiences that you've had. What are you doing differently because you've walked the journey, you've identified a way to eliminate, outdated processes. You can help your ideal client get to their achievements or their goals far quicker because of this new, whatever it is. And sometimes it can be the simplest of things, but you can support them. And remember that there's this saying, I'm sure you've heard of this analogy, where someone goes in to get his car fixed. The mechanic listens to it for a little while and, opens a hood, takes out a hammer or whatever, and he taps something, and all of a sudden the car starts working. And he said, that'll be whatever it was. And the client goes, "What? That's expensive. It only took you 10 minutes. He says, "Yeah, I know, but it took me 20 years to be able to listen and know exactly where to tap." That's what your ideal clients are paying you for. So when you think about putting together your unique system, what are the steps that you can take your ideal clients through to get them from, through you listening and going, I know exactly, there are steps and processes. So work through that and then create this incredible IP, which is your unique offering to the world. And then, of course, do you have core programs? The best, better, a good, better, best has often been said. Do you have programs that when you speak about them to your ideal customers, they can go, you know what? Yes, let's do this. Because, remember, you're taking them on a journey. You've shared this incredible message that's cut through the noise. You've really piqued their interest. You've compelled them to be able to reach out to you and say, hey, I need to speak more about, I think you can help me. I think I need to work with you. And then you transition beautifully across, well, these are the different ways that I can support you. Which way would you like to move forward, and making it an easy yes? And I know it brings up this whole topic of, money mindset and value and all of that. And maybe that's an area that is where you're struggling, because you have not quite yet gotten to the stage where you're able to fluently have that conversation with someone to make it an easy yes. Because if you're struggling with that, if you're not able to support and guide your ideal client through that, it's going to be hard for your, that potential client to say yes if you haven't said yes to, which is a whole other topic. So here are some things that I want you to do. Firstly, celebrate, because I know for some of you, you've now had an aha, or you just validated, yep, got that in place. And you've been able to pinpoint some of the areas that perhaps you might need to do some more work, or you just need to double down on what you're doing. You just need to continue to double down. But what I do want you to do is to get clear on your ideal client and the challenges that they face and the outcomes and the desires that they want to achieve. And if you're part of our community over podcastingwithpurpose.com/community, last week, I did a training on some customer research, and it's the actual steps that I take to be able to make sure that I keep my finger on the pulse as to what people are struggling with, so that when I share my message, that it's relevant to the conversations that they're having either inside their own head, or it's things that they're saying to their, community, or what they're seeking. So that's what you need to do. So often we are not tapping into those places that we can get the information that's going to help us refine our message. So that's number one. Number two, you need to get clear on you. As you can see from all of the incredible comments here that we've had and what I have shared, you have to get clear on, that expertise that you bring and what specifically is your area of brilliance. And so often the answer is sitting right in front of us when we're looking at the mirror. Now, there may be someone who's been speaking over your life and been saying to you, you do know that, fill in the gap. That could be something that you need to bring in to how you're sharing your message, or maybe shape the message that you are sharing. So don't discredit what people have said, the good, positive things, of course. And of course, you need to get clear on the outcomes and the benefits that your ideal client will achieve through investing in you. You have to get clear on that yourself, and you have to have that level of confidence, not arrogance, but confidence that you know when your client says yes, they are going to get a result because you know that it works. You have to be 150%, clear and stand behind what you say, because that will influence and it's going to impact how you talk about your product and service. And often it's because of that passion. And I love the way that Rick said, you can't fake authentic passion, you just can't. And when you show up consistently in how you share your message across all different platforms, different mediums, if someone's listening to you or watching you face to face or doing a Zoom or a live, when that consistent passion and consistent message continues to shine through over and over and over again, your ideal client will be nurtured through that customer journey, the buyer's journey, to the point where they go, you know what, I'm ready now. And I cannot think of anyone else that I would want to support me than you. It just will happen. It really just will happen. And you've got to hone your language and how you speak to your ideal customers as well. Content, but also how you are delivering, because, you have to have consistency in and across all of the different mediums and modes of communication. Really, really important. Create your IP, your signature system, your unique processes. In fact, that will often become a sub-brand. People will start to talk about your program. You need to go and talk to the money lady. She's got this incredible program, if you've branded it well to be very outcome focused, that in itself will become a sub-brand of its own when you do it well. And of course, create some offerings, create some programs so that when you talk to your ideal customer, it's an easy decision, for them to make. Am I going to do this program, or am I going to do that program? Or maybe I just want to work with you on a very close basis because I want to see and achieve the results that you've been talking about across all of the content. All right. So some next steps to take this to the next level. If you haven't already signed up and accessed my podcast series, I talk a little bit more about your niche, about your signature system, about your signature brand, all of those things in the podcast series. And so go and access that and sign up. There's some checklists. It's a transcript for those of you who would rather print it out and then highlight it and take notes. And by the way, all of the things that I spoke about, just giving you a heads up in case this is something that you might like to consider. The next Core Business Foundation starts in September, where we're going to dive deep into everything that I've just spoken about, and then some in September 2020. So perhaps put that on your diary. But for now, also get inside the community, podcastingwithpurpose.com/community, where once these things start we will roll them out and give people a heads up when it's coming up, so you can be the first in line and find out more about it too, to see if we're a good fit. But anyway, that is how to monetize your money, or specifically how to really start to pinpoint what are some things that perhaps I'm doing or not doing that I need to focus on moving forward. And I think specifically for some of you, I know that the situation that we now find ourselves in has required you to just to reevaluate, how am I going to reposition? And often the best thing to be doing is really observing, where can I be the most value for my customers now, my ideal customers now. And so for some of you, you might really need to hone in a little bit specifically to where your market is struggling now to get them through this next season, and And you'll need to go through what I've just shared, honing your message, really understanding with clarity what they're struggling with so that you can better position your message, your content, and obviously the programs that you'll be able to support them with too, to make sure that you can best support them in the way that they need. All right, that's all for me today. Hopefully, I have given you some things to think about. You are so welcome, Cheryl, Rick. Who else? April, thank you for being here. Tony, you're awesome. Thank you. And I'll be here again, same time next week as well. Bye for now.